no actions taken during closed session. So that's a pretty quick report. Next thing on the agenda is the annual organizational meeting, at which we'll elect the board president, elect the board clerk, and appoint a representative to 2 organizations. And just as a refresher, I want to share with the board primarily, we had a discussion on this in November, and what we agreed to was that the process of making nominations is subject to the following rules. The president calls for nominations for an office or position. Recognition by the chair, excuse me, is not required to make a nomination. Nominations don't have to be seconded, but it's not out of order for members to second a nomination to signal their endorsement. And that's as simple as it is. So the first thing on the agenda is nomination of the election of the president. Are there nominations for the presidency from this meeting until December of next year? Susan?
Calling a nomination to vote. Is that what we're doing?
To nominate.
Oh, so I'll nominate Kerry for the board president.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Are there other nominations?
I nominate myself.
Okay. So we will then, we will call the roll, and each member of the board will indicate, I'm sorry, are there any further nominations? Okay, each member of the board will indicate whether they choose to vote for Member Throop or Member Friend. And then Hannah will tell us what the tally is.
Well, no.
We'll probably know, yes. But she has the official tally.
Member Wilson.
President Throop.
Member Brownell.
President Throop.
Member Wright.
President Throop.
Member Friend.
Myself.
President Throop.
Member Throop. So by my count, I have been re-elected president by a vote of 4-1. The next thing on the agenda is election of the clerk. So I will now accept nominations to be the clerk of the Cayucos Elementary School District School Board.
I'd like to nominate Kerry Friend.
Okay, a nomination from Mr. Wilson for Kerry Friend.
No, that was right.
Member Wright.
That's me.
Are there further nominations?
I don't know.
I'm sorry?
He was trying to encourage me to go for the clerk, but I'm still learning.
Okay. Since there are no further nominations, we'll declare the nominations closed. And are people comfortable if we just record a unanimous vote for that office?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay. So Member Friend has been elected clerk of the school board. And the final position, it's actually 2 positions, but we have usually rolled them into one, and that's the recommendation from SLOCO that they be combined. So a district representative to the County Committee on School District Organization and the San Luis Obispo County School Boards Association. Are there any nominations for that position? nomination for Mr. Wilson,
I'll second.
and we have a second nomination. Are there a second to that nomination? Are there any further nominations? Okay, then we'll declare the nominations closed, and as we did with the Clerks Commission, if you would please record a unanimous vote for Mr. Wilson to fill that position. Next thing on the agenda is to designate the superintendent of schools as the secretary to the board. So I will accept a motion to designate the superintendent of schools as the secretary to the board.
I'll make that motion, though, could we get in trouble?
Only if we don't have the secretary. No, that gives him important powers. Is there a second? Because this is a motion, this is
I'll
not
second it.
a nomination. So Member Brownell seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Once again, with the approval of the board, we'll just record a unanimous vote in favor of having Superintendent Smith be the secretary of the board. And the last item in this organizational meeting is determination of the date and time and place of regular meetings. And there is a proposed calendar. I'm sorry? Oh, that identifies that our regular meetings will continue to be on the second Wednesday of the month. There is in this a monthly schedule, and there are actually 4 deviations from that second Wednesday. The first one is January 17th, where the meeting is delayed because of school vacation. So it's to give time to prepare for the meeting after school resumes following the Christmas break. There are 2 meetings scheduled in June 6th and June 20th for the public hearing on the LCAP and the budget. And then at the June 20th, which will be a delayed regular meeting, we'll adopt the LCAP and the budget. The one other deviation from the regular agenda is that we will not plan a regular meeting in July, but we'll call one if one is necessary.
There's one correction, which is that the December 12th meeting is actually December 13th, I believe. No,
No,
maybe
the
that's
other way.
correct. No,
Yeah.
December 12th
This
is
is-
correct, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Double negative.
Okay.
I had a question, and I didn't look at the calendar, didn't have time. We usually try to work around spring break, and does this reflect that?
Yeah,
And graduation, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
okay. Is there a motion to accept this calendar of regular board meetings?
I move that we accept the proposed calendar.
I'll second it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. So once again, as we're in this organizational meeting, I'm just going to ask that a unanimous vote be recorded unless there's some objection to doing that.
Just to clarify, you also need to do your closed session time at 5:30 and your open session time at 6 o'clock, and that this would be the location unless otherwise noted.
Thank you for that clarification.
Oh, on that form, right?
Okay. The next thing on the agenda is correspondence. And under general correspondence, we have one piece of correspondence.
There's
It's-
4, aren't there?
But it's actually 4 or 5 things, so they're very cleverly combined together. Superintendent Smith, would you please describe these, this correspondence to the board and the public?
Happy to. Thank you, President Throop. So the first piece of correspondence is a letter from the San Luis Obispo County Office of Education, Dr. Jim Brescia, and they are informing us that because of which I will get into at the superintendent's report, because our on the CDE website, the dashboard that has the Harvey balls that kind of show how every school and every district in the state is doing. Because we had a small decline in our math scores last year and had a 3 out of 5, which is yellow on that, we qualify for the first level of assistance by the County Office of Ed, and it identifies what that level of assistance is. And it's basically working with them to identify strengths and weaknesses in the district. And so that's all that first correspondence is. The second correspondence.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
In the second paragraph, it says we're eligible for assistance if any student group met the criteria for 2 or more LCFF priorities. And does that one change in the math scores qualify for?
I haven't sat down with them yet and gone through it, but I think it's also because our suspensions went up last year. I believe that we had 3 suspensions, and so that showed an increase in suspensions, and the new dashboard is very change driven. So it's the change over the previous year. So if you have an increase in suspensions, it shows up pretty drastically on the dashboard.
Thank you.
Then the following sheet is notifying us the results of the County Committee on School District Organization, and for District 2, Stuart Selkirk was reelected, District 4, Juan Olivaria, and District 5, Andrew Hayes.
Oh, yeah.
Then the next correspondence was from the state. We got it from the CalPADS data management team, and they sent us a certificate for our data management recognition because we are complying with our required data submissions, and they're not finding errors in it. And so that's in large part to us partnering with Eric Schell, Kathy Genalucci, and the great work of Hannah Held on it. And then the next piece of correspondence is also from the County Office of Ed, and it's just the correspondence that was sent with the San Luis Obispo County Schools Annual Education Report, and I put a copy on everyone's desk, on the desk for everyone to see, and it just kind of highlights different things about every district in the county, and is a very well done report. And I believe that's it.
And there are also copies for the public.
Yes.
At the desk near the entrance.
Sure.
And Mr. Wilson.
I'd just like to point out, if we go back to the election for the county committee, we are chipping away a little bit. There were 5 ballots, and Stuart only got. There were 9
10,
ballots.
right? Oh.
No, there were only 9 ballots that were submitted, so somebody didn't.
Oh, that's too bad.
Actually, 2, I think, because the Questa also. So two organizations did not submit ballots, and of the 9, he got 5 votes. So there were 4 votes that weren't
So there's 11 counting Cuesta, 10 plus
Yeah,
11.
but what I'm saying is with the votes that, with the ballots that came in, 4 were not for him, so we're chipping away, and if we could maybe mobilize earlier for Kathy Madonna, really start earlier.
Well, we should publicly thank Eileen too for putting your name forward for one of those, so thank you.
And even in that, there were, only
6, I think that was at large.
60% or 66% voted for the incumbent, which is, again, chipping away at the whole thing. So I think if we can up our game and get started earlier, we'd have a chance, and I don't think Kathy is as strong a candidate as Stewart was. So.
Well, San Luis Coastal voted for Steve and Eileen. We saw that at the last night's board meeting. They had that in there.
Right, so but there were 2 others also, so.
I certainly reached out to a number of administration board members that I know. I may have done it too early, and you're saying maybe we need to get organized earlier. Maybe we need to do it right at the end, because I'm not sure.
Well, maybe it's
all of the above.
All the above process to, and it's individual board members, or maybe going to a board meeting with a good, and that would a concerted argument that we have a presentation, and I mean, it can't hurt at this point. The less we do hasn't helped us, so the more.
Do you have any sense that the electors are directed by their boards who they should vote for, or do you think it's a personal?
No, I don't. It's the same way we had talked about it. We were supporting Eileen, and we talked about, we put forward Steve. I mean, I believe they discuss who they might, but from what I've seen, looking at this for quite a while, and Kerry might have the same observation, is the incumbents just roll over because it's easy. And
well, I don't know that. I don't think we can answer that question. Each board is different.
yeah,
I think some boards just say, "Hey, you're the representative, you vote,"
yeah,
and some vote. So
quite a
it's
possibility.
They may be more.
They may be more malleable.
Yeah, I can't answer that question even as long as I've been here. I don't know what the boards are doing.
So we did talk about District 2 and the at-large position, but we didn't talk about any of the other districts, for instance.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, planning ahead to what,
Anybody
other
ran against
districts'
him, though.
needs might be, but
I don't think
I'm not
anybody
sure
ran
they're the
against
same, underlying issues in those districts between the candidates and within their district, where there might be a reason why somebody would want one person rather than
Well, District 4, I don't think one had anybody running against him anyway,
Right.
so we didn't need to have a discussion on him. Anyways,
we still only got 7 votes.
Okay, we have a space for correspondence regarding high school options. We didn't receive any high school options correspondence. So next thing on the agenda is a review of the minutes from the November 8th meeting. Are there questions, comments, or is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I have some comments, but do we need a motion first?
Sure,
No, I just don't know,
that's the best way to do it. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'm just looking, because that's the one thing that's seeing here.
Okay, now, are there comments or discussion?
yes. Sorry, Ron, I don't know, I can't see it either, so it must not have been in that packet that got forwarded. Last month, I have it right here. The PDF, I made a PDF of everything and I sent it, so that's what Ron's looking at, and I don't see it either, of all the attachments. I'm a little bit dismayed that the subject of our minutes has come up September, October, November, and now again. The October discussion was along the lines of wanting more than just a name and so talked. And then November's minutes were much better there was discussion at the November meeting, and as long as that level of detail remained, then it was fine. Well, the minutes for last month's meeting are severely lacking in that level of detail. I would like to settle this once and for all, what we're looking for in our minutes, because when the minutes state things like, I had 2 concerns, okay, what are those concerns? You know, in the correspondence area, in the second paragraph, it says, member friend asked about CTA correspondence, L. Coleman's email, R. Delamas's email, and reference 3 board bylaws. There was a robust, at least a 10-minute discussion there regarding Member Wilson's email. That's completely not there. And I know we don't need a transcript, but I'm just I don't know what to do. These minutes are just kind of willy-nilly when they have details or not. Charlie Minetti, in his presentations for ASB, reported on some upcoming ASB activities. I would like those listed. I mean, maybe we need to have, this is Board Source, talks about board meeting minutes and what's in there and what's required, what's too much or too little. It is, it's supposed to be reference material, board history, legal review, orientation, and if things aren't listed, I'm just growing weary of having this conversation every minute, because we have so many other things to do with the K-8 humans that are at the school, that spending time every month talking about minutes and what they should or should not have is just, I don't know, I think these minutes need a little bit, quite a bit more attention in several areas. And I don't know if you want me to go over them piece by piece or what, but.
Well, I think that's one of the problems with having more detailed minutes. If you look at Robert's rules or other guides like that, it says the minutes record what happened at the board meeting. And I think that's similar to what is in our board policy on minutes. The problem is once you start to open it up from that, and you can identify speakers and do other things like that. But the more detail you get, the more people want to make changes and corrections. And I'm not sure I don't think that's a constructive use of our time.
But when it's said that I have 2 concerns, I would like those 2 concerns mentioned. You know, what we talked about, the level of detail, and I'm trying to go back to, I know I saved minutes and recordings on the Board Bylaw 9324, come on computer, open, talks about what should be in there. Oh, I have it right here. It states the governing board recognizes that maintaining accurate minutes of board meetings provides a record of board actions for use by district staff and the public, and helps foster public trust in board governance. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in between there. And then it says the minutes shall reflect the names of those individuals who comment during the meeting's public comment period, as well as the topics they address. So our board bylaws already say that. To say that I had 2 concerns, that's not my topic. My topic is what my concerns are. Concern 1, concern 2. You know, there in correspondence, President Throop mentioned CSBA correspondence. That's all. I mean, all it needed to say was about a CSBA delegate. Somebody looking back is not going to know what that means. I mean, that's a minor one, but I still think that it should be more included. In my board member report, I mentioned be aware of the California Voting Rights Act. That's it. It doesn't say why. I mean, I think looking back at those minutes, it would be prudent to say what the, why. You know, CCAC meeting, I had 2 concerns. Public comment, Bliss Quimby, it says in our minutes, Bliss Quimby asked Member Wilson directly what it was he wanted for an outcome. She said a lot more than that. She specifically mentioned the high school. It's not just an outcome. She asked, why are you so forcibly into the high school? So
in other words, if you said regarding the high school, or something simple like that, that doesn't extend the minutes out to become too wordy, but having a little bit more specifics.
Which is what we talked about in November. I mean, sorry, no, we talked about it in October. We were in the gym. So November's minutes were beautiful. They did have that little bit more detail. I know that Eileen Roach commented about it in public comment to continue that level of detail. We all talked about that the minutes that we approved last month were great, and if they followed along that same vein, it was fine, but this one's they're not. So I will most likely have a future agenda item to review some board source meeting minutes, but I'm not prepared to approve these minutes yet with not enough information.
But by the same token, you aren't prepared to provide us with specific
I just-
changes you'd like to the minutes.
I just did, and I can give you my printout if you would like. I did. I went through, talked about Bliss Quimby. She actually said, she asked him directly what it was that he wanted. That's what the thing said, but she says, why are you so forcibly wanting high school options? I'm not saying that her exact quote has to be in the minutes, but she didn't ask Member Wilson about an outcome. She asked, why are you wanting the high school options? Those are two different things, different flavor. So I actually did. And another correction, district video recordings of board meetings. I did call San Luis Coastal, and I did say they pay $650 a month, and they meet twice a month. That was left off, so my little comments on there are kind of like, I read it, I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why do we care if San Luis Coastal uses that company? So I have typed up, and I'm very prepared to do that. I just didn't know if you wanted that. I just don't want to have, we spent over 5 minutes of our precious time on this, and this shouldn't happen every month. I would just like minutes to be consistent every time.
Superintendent Smith, do you have a comment? Or Hannah, do you have a comment?
Our board policy, like you just stated, is name and topic. Name and topic is not details. And that's my previous experience as board president. That's exactly why we followed name and topic only, because otherwise you're relying on someone's interpretation of the details that someone else spoke. And so, but they're your minutes, and you guys can do whatever you want with them. We can raise the level of detail or stick with name and topic. And fact, reality is, a public member can get up and they are not required to give their name. So even though our minutes say name and topic, and while we know most people in the community and we put down their name and the topic they spoke on, any member of the public can get up and they do not have to give their name to speak during public comment.
But I think there's more to it than that. There's also the question of, are there adequate resources to do more detailed minutes consistently, month after month, and have a degree of consistency?
Well, you're relying on one person's interpretation of what someone else said. So when you get into that, what they think is important and what the speaker thought was important could be very two dissimilar things.
I don't know.
I don't know that we didn't make any efforts this month to reduce the amount of detail. So it's not, we were just moving forward, so.
Okay. Mr. Wilson.
Just for what it's worth, this goes back quite a ways with CSBA when I first started going to these meetings and trying to understand.
Mike, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. This for what it's worth, this goes back to CSBA conferences, in 2000. But what they talked about is, the bottom line is, the public record is about actions, and that's what ours says, actions, and actions are our votes. And that's something they can look and they can see that it was unanimous, or it was a split vote, or whatever. They see the topic, and that's, our discussions go on, but they either peter out because we don't do something, or they come to some fruition that is an action that affects the future of the district. And I said, what you focus on, so.
But it says in Board Bylaw 9324, I don't disagree with you, it does say actions, but it continues, in order to ensure that the minutes are focused on board action, the minutes shall include only a brief summary of the board's discussion, but shall not include a verbatim record of the board's discussion on each agenda topic, or names of board members who made specific points. So there still should be some of the discussion in there, per our current policy.
Ms. Brownell?
While I see some value in detail, I honestly am all for simplifying it. Because my very short, limited experience in this, what I see happening with this is it's becoming a divisive tool rather than what it's meant. And it's meant to update people that weren't here. And divisive actually isn't the right word. I'm trying to think of the right word. I feel like it's being misused. And I think keeping things simple, if a member of the public sees this and they see somebody's name and they want more information, call them, email them, talk to them, if they're that concerned about it. But I just see my experience thus far, it's being misused and mishandled, and I think simplify it is my take on it for now.
But I'd like to respond to that if I may.
You may.
If somebody wasn't here, reading this is not gonna let them know what happened at the meeting. So I agree with you, simple is fine. However, this is not reflective of the discussions at the meeting. The whole discussion that I brought up about Member Wilson's email is not even reflected at all here. You know, and it says when I have two concerns about CCAC, yes, it says two concerns. It doesn't say what they are. And so I agree partially with what you have to say, but nobody reading, if you watch the video that I made of last month's and read this, they're drastically different. The tone is different. Like I said last month, the flavor, it's not this, and now we're spending over, again, 10 more minutes on stuff that really, I don't know, I'm just at a loss.
Well, if I may just add, Hannah does her best to record what's happening at the meeting on the fly while she's managing the computer and what's on the screen and any other distractions. I did not ask her to reduce the amount of detail this month. I do not believe she intended to reduce the amount of detail this month. But that's kind of a difficult thing to record what's happening on the fly. And so, you know, I would be concerned that, you know, we're setting up the person that we're expecting to take minutes for failure if we're expecting that level of interpretation and detail. I don't see how they can get it done properly.
Thank you. Member Wright.
Well, I would agree to accept the minutes as they stand. I do see Member Friend's point, though, when there are a few words left out, it can change the meaning of it, and we just need to be careful that what we do put in there gives a complete picture. I'm not for making a very, very large example of the minutes. I don't think that's necessary, but there are specific words sometimes that are left out. It's up to us to be able to point those things out, though, so that we're helping rather than just criticizing how the minutes are made.
Okay. I'm going to call for a vote on the motion, whether we're going to accept these minutes or not. The only thing I can think of process-wise, looking forward, and again, I'll refer this to Superintendent Smith, is it possible to get draft board minutes out to all of the board members before they get published in the packet and get comments from members who see something that they perceive as being important that could be changed? Is that workable?
We can work on it. Sure.
I actually don't know if I agree with that though, because then somebody can alter the way it's read, and that's not the way that it happened.
Well, it's
They
not
can
showing what's happened right
But-
now.
But, no, but I think if you're doing it that way, then Hannah and Scott would be the final arbiters of whether somebody's comment is accepted or not. The fact that somebody sends in a comment doesn't mean it's gonna be accepted. That's my perception. Mr. Wilson,
It's gonna be interesting if two board members or three board members.
microphone, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm comfortable. It's gonna be interesting and even more
We
confusing.
still can't hear you.
Oh, does this one work?
Yeah,
Okay.
now it will.
Okay, it's an ice cream. It's gonna be interesting to resolve it if two or more board members on the same topic have a different, input on the interpretation of it.
I don't understand why we're interpreting. It's a discussion. There's nothing to
Well,
interpret.
yeah, okay, so there's something in the board, in the minutes, the draft minutes, and you and I put in comments that are different. Val puts in, any of us put in comments that say, this is my recollection or my interpretation of what was said by one of us or by somebody else. It just, it's
Okay.
not making life easier.
Let me ask that, Scott and I will go off and discuss this, and we'll make a suggestion for how we'll handle it.
How about at our board retreat?
I haven't, that's not until March. We can review it again then, certainly, if we want to. Okay, so we've had discussion, then I'm gonna call for a vote on whether the minutes should be accepted. Ms. Held, would you call for the vote, please?
Member Brownell,
Aye.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Member Friend,
No.
President Throop,
Aye,
Member Wilson.
Aye.
thank you.
We have two public comments.
Two public comments for
Public comment, just right now.
Oh, for the public comment session. Okay, this public comment session, anyone is free to offer comment. These comments are frequently for things that are not on the agenda. If you do have a comment about something that is on the agenda, you can either make it now or wait until that agenda item comes up and then speak at that time. So,
Okay, first up is Eileen and then Trish.
My name is Eileen Roach.
That one works.
It's an ice cream cone thing. Hello. Is that working?
Yes.
I was here last month for the meeting, and I picked up some, we had a nice presentation from President Throop about the Brown Act. And this is a page from that presentation, and it says, a meeting means any congregation of a majority of the members of the legislative body, that's the school board, at the same time and location to hear any item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. There's a couple words I left out, discussed, whatever, but to hear is the very first one they talk about. So I don't understand why there were 3 members of the school board at the Campus Advisory Council meeting last week hearing a discussion about an item that the school board asked to be on there that was related to the legislation the school board wants them to support. And that's happened at the last 2 CCC meetings, and that seems like a clear violation of the Brown Act based on what Terry provided last month. So
bring it to our attention. Next comment?
Yes, Trish.
I just wanted to give you a quick athletics update, like the volleyball, girls volleyball season is over. We had 23 girls in middle school play, which was an A and a B team, and that was about 30% of the entire middle school playing girls volleyball. The A team took first in the and basketball has begun. We have 12 girls on the A team. We only have an A team, 15 boys on the A and B team, and the coaches are Lance Carney and John Crossa for the boys, and Lance Carney for the girls. And I've been updating the website, so when you go to the homepage, there's an athletics tab, and you can drop down, and you can see the rosters and the schedule and practice notes or anything that pertains to right now.
Trish, I missed the number of participants for basketball.
12 girls and 15 boys. And that season runs second trimester. That will be over early March.
And congrats on first place.
I want to ask Superintendent Smith a question. Is there a reason why we don't invite the champions here to get recognized by the board?
They're hiding? There is no reason. In fact, we have already students coming scheduled for January and February meetings. They were not, it wasn't centered around athletics, but by all means, we can consider that for the future. But no, there's no reason that we're avoiding that.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is approval and denial of interdistrict transfers.
We have a public person on that.
So you have a public comment on that?
Anthony Hansen.
My name's Anthony Hansen. You all know who I am. I'm Hank's dad. Hank's gone to school here since kindergarten until this last year. It's been a rough go at the Hansen household. Last few months with a whole bunch of things. Top of the list is trying to figure out how to be the best parent. Rough go. I mean, not really rough go, but you know, you're always trying to do what's best for your kids. Anyways, Hank went to Loams this last year, beginning of this school year. We thought with high school coming up and that might be a good move for him, and it was not. He's really struggled socially, confidence-wise. Yeah, it's just not been a good fit, and we are applying to come back to school here. So he'd be 7th grade, and then hopefully finish up the year next year, 8th grade. We've spoken here at this microphone a bunch, being transferred families from Memorial Bay. So there's probably not much need to add to that other than our own little personal, trying to figure it out as parents. So I hope you guys, thank you for listening, and I hope you approve our transfer. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Smith.
Want to bring this IDT request forward with my recommendation to approve.
I move that we approve this interdistrict transfer.
I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the IDT request. Is there discussion? We ask for the vote, please.
Member Wright?
Definitely aye.
Member Friend?
Aye.
President Throop?
Aye.
Member Wilson?
Aye.
Member Brownell? Aye.
Welcome back.
Would you welcome Hank back for us?
I will. Thanks thanks for always being receptive and letting people show up and speak. I know there's been various opinions about transfers over the years, and we're glad to be here, so thank you.
Thank you.
See you,
Thank you.
Anthony.
And I'm leaving.
Next item on the agenda is the ASB report. Is there?
Sorry, it's not a kid, but I'm close. So we just had another successful joint dance with Santa Lucia Middle School. We took the bus up, we had our chaperones, and it was really fun. The lights went out, so it was super exciting up there. But they got it back on, so we like to take credit for that, but I don't think it was us. We're getting ready for our spring dance. As soon as we come back from break, we are going to set up all of our spirit days, which our next spirit day, you're welcome to come. It's the last day of school, and you can all wear your pajamas that day, and I know you'll be happy about that. So we'll be starting our spring dance planning and our next spirit days when we come back in January. Any questions for ASB, and I will pass them along. Thank you.
Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is a report from PTA.
PTA is not doing a report tonight, although they did have another meeting last night, and they're just moving forward in a very positive manner. We've got some great participation right now in PTA and some excellent people running it, and just want to publicly say that we appreciate them.
I heard good feedback on Santa's workshop last Saturday, so that's good.
I think it's on.
No. You mentioned specifically that CPA said they didn't want I said, do it on the television. Okay, all right, good, thank you. Next item then is the Health and Safety Committee.
So Nessa runs Health and Safety Committee. She's been doing a great job. We continue to do well overall on injuries, although we did recently have our first injury, unfortunately. And so we're just continuing to work it, and we did qualify for the maximum amount to be rebated to us from site this year. So she continues to just do an excellent job and keep it very organized, and we appreciate her work too.
Excuse me, so the battery's running low.
Okay, any questions?
This is for normal student injuries. What's a normal student injury?
Is that what I said? More normal?
On the safety thing, so on the actual,
Oh,
I don't understand what is that?
bumps and bruises, things like that happen on the yard.
So maybe normal's not a very good word. Minor, perhaps? What the heck?
Okay, next item, we move now to the information and discussion section. The next item on that agenda is board member report. Anybody have a report that they would like to make?
Yes, in a minute, somebody else go first. Figuring out my battery.
I'll go, I guess. Some of us went to the CSBA conference in San Diego, and while I really enjoyed it, I just wanted to comment to the other board members that I feel like it is a lot of money for the district to spend for what we get there. And I feel like I want us to rethink as a board whether that should be maybe even if it's important to the other board members, maybe even a biannual, or, I don't know. I just feel like it's not a lot of bang for your buck. And, so, while I found it very interesting and I learned a lot, I think another purpose for that is for us to do, something together as a board. And I just feel like there's something here locally that we could do that would also save the district a lot of money. So, my comments.
Thank you.
I guess we're not responding to that in our board member reports. I went to the San Luis Coastal board meeting last night, and I'm trying to find my printout. I left at 8, but I was there in time to hear their blue ribbon report. And they have 3 different scenarios. One would be all cuts. I'm sorry, I printed out what their scenarios were. Anyway, so they know, and it was an interesting report. They know it's going to be painful, and they're going to have to work together. But as far as IDTs, what would affect us the most is they said that district-wide, they have 160 IDTs. And we know we're 52 high school, because I looked at that previously. So they'll be looking into getting some money back for that, and they estimated like 400,000. But there's a lot of the committee members that did the report were very thoughtful, and I don't think anything's going to happen. They want to move with a sense of urgency, but it would not be secret. It was very nice to hear how they want to include everybody, and they know it's going to be painful. They even might have to do teacher layoffs, close a school, you know. So those are kind of not very fun things that they're saying we have to talk about and be open. So I appreciated hearing that from them. So if it does come down to that, I mean, it's not like, you know, they're going to sweep it under the rug or anything. So that was nice. Went to AEC, right? I think it's a great opportunity for just networking. And my computer just died and whatnot. I liked it. So that's it for me.
Okay, I was also at the report of the Blue Ribbon Commission, and they took an interesting approach. It was 10 highly capable, well-respected people from the community, including Dr. Gresham and Gil Stark, who's the president of Cuesta. There was nobody from the San Luis Coastal Board or administration on the panel, so it was a completely outside panel. And they likened their situation to somebody who has just been told, in this case they were told a year ago, you have a serious illness, but it's not fatal, you're going to live through it, but there are 5 or 6 different courses of treatment that we might want to pursue. Each of those has a different likelihood of success. Each of those has side effects that you'll like or you won't like, and none of them are trivial. So it's, as Kerry mentioned, certainly they looked at ways to increase income to the district. And the biggest possibility for increasing income to the district is a parcel tax. A parcel tax would have to be approved by 2/3 of those who voted in a district-wide election. And they used numbers $80 to $100 to $150 per parcel as an annual tax. And then when they talked about the cutting cost size, it was just like we are. 85% of their costs are people costs. And of the people who could be affected, 95% of those people are members of unions. So there's very little that the administration can do arbitrarily just to reduce their costs. And yet they talk about closing schools and selling property and establishing an endowment. So they're looking at a pretty broad scope of it, the scope of the plan. But I think the biggest fear, and the thing I didn't realize was on the agenda, they're worried that PG&E is going to bring forward the closing date, and that PG&E may not keep Diablo Canyon open till 2025, and therefore the money from PG&E would stop sooner than the transition money from PG&E. And I sensed a significant amount of concern about that. So they're working on it. Obviously it hadn't caused a lot of alarm in the district because there were 50 people at the meeting at most, 50, 60.
No, less than that.
Yeah.
In the audience?
Yeah.
20.
Well, it depends on when you count, because early in the meeting there were students there from the schools. Anyway, there wasn't a lot of alarm. I think the article on the front page of the Tribune this morning described it pretty well. Interestingly enough, that article left out the possibility of getting a significant amount of money from those who are the students who are transferring into the district.
I would guess though, because
wasn't in there somewhere.
yeah, but that's only on the order of 400,000, where the other things were millions.
Yeah.
So maybe whoever wrote the article was, 400,000 versus 2.6 million.
Yeah, but they also talked about, their endowment. They said, oh, if we could get $10 million, we could get 400,000 a year from them. So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we were both there. Did they talk in the specifics about the tuition for IDPs?
No.
High level presentation, and nobody from the district spoke on that topic at all. It was just the panel.
Well, and the PowerPoint that was used last night is on their website now. I went to go look at it, and so that's where there's a report that's on their website, and then the PowerPoint has they have scenario 1, which is make all the cuts. So I think we're spending way too much time on this than we need to, but if you want to, their report is on there, so you could see it.
Well, I was wondering if they've made a comment, because the 160 students at 400,000 is like 2,500 per student.
This wasn't the appropriate time for that. They were just presenting their whole umbrella.
I just wondered.
And now they said, now we need to.
No discussion.
Okay.
So I went to the CSBA conference in San Diego as well. I got some valuable things from it. As Susan says, it is pretty expensive and it takes a big chunk of time out of your life. So re-examining that before next year, I think, is the appropriate thing to do. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next thing on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
So, thank you, President Throop. Looking to try to get a school calendar for 18-19 published soon. So, work with stakeholders to get that out. Hope to have that to bring forward to the board by the February meeting, maybe the January meeting, but we'll see. Also, continue to work with San Luis Coastal and Coast Unified on a possible MOU. We are making progress. It's slow progress, but I'm still hopeful that we can get something hammered out. We'll see. Also, the lighting project is about, I'd say, over halfway done here at the school. So we're going to be more energy efficient soon, and the projected lifespan for all that lighting is 10 years. So it should reduce our maintenance cost also for the next 10 years, because it's all going to be brand new. That's all being paid for with Prop 39 funds directly from the state. Also, we had a little update regarding our special ed costs. Our special ed costs, our most expensive SDC students recently moved to another district. Estimated costs on that student this year were $50,000. we're halfway through the year, so I'd expect that it'll be around 25. And as that student entered kindergarten next year, our expected cost was approximately $75,000. So that's going to be a big change for our special education budget. Also, the CDE dashboard has been updated. And I know that, Hannah, would you mind pulling up the CDE dashboard for me? Thank you. Those pie-shaped balls are called Harvey balls. I believe that they color code them and pie shape them, so if you print it black and white, it still makes sense. But right now, this is the fall release. Would you mind going back up and pulling down the spring release? So this is, in the spring, this is what we look like in language arts and mathematics. We were yellow and orange, and we all talked about the concern regarding that. And the state's efforts in how we were green in suspension rate then. Anyway, they went through, reworked the formulas. It's still a moving target, all of this, because the state is refining and developing it as you go. But as you can see in language arts, we were yellow and orange in math. Could you go back to the fall now? So the update now in the fall, and you can see the difference. Now we are green in language arts and yellow. So we moved up a level in both language arts and mathematics. This is off the same data. They redid how this whole dashboard works because it wasn't functioning properly and getting the desired results. And I'm going to look into why our suspension rates went from green to orange, dropped 2 levels, even though our data was the same. So as you can see, the state's still making this up as they go, and you know, it is what it is. Bottom line is we're hovering around 50% meets and exceeds the standards in both math and language arts, which for some districts they would be ecstatic to have that level of student achievement. But here in Cayucos, I think we can still do a little bit better, and so we're working on that. The staff has been very collaborative, and we'll continue to work those issues. So that's the update on the CDE dashboard. And also today, there's a new state mandate this year for suicide prevention training. The whole staff went through suicide prevention training today. It was better than I anticipated it would be. And one of the beauties of it was I think it gave everyone real simple tools to use with students and adults that we see warning signs in that they may be leaning toward a suicide attempt and how to intervene. And so that's always a good thing. And the whole staff went through that today. And then the other thing I already mentioned, and I think that is it for my superintendent's report. Be happy to field questions if anyone has questions.
Mr. Wilson.
Scott, the special ed status change is not reflected in our budget. I mean,
In the first interim report, no, it is not.
The
That
reduction, which
just happened.
right. So, and it's a significant number there. It's like
In this fiscal year, probably a $25,000 savings, approximately.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is the LCAP update.
Thank you. LCAP will continue to have our monthly meetings. This last, or the previous meeting, actually, I think I forgot to talk a little bit about the discussions that we have and how we get input from our members. So we had some discussion about cross-curricular instructions to include the STEAM. It's one of our goals to make sure that keeps going through our school. So we talked about that. We talked about how Ms. Jake Wright, our STEAM professional, about every month and a half, creates a STEAM day for all the elementary school kids to rotate through stations with different activities and different themes that she has for us. So it's something that we've been discussing to make sure that we're on track with all of our science standards. So this month, at our meeting, we talked about different student activities. We've already talked a little bit about athletics. Trish kind of brought us up to date on that. We talked there was a couple of new members, so we're talking about our new middle school electives that we've incorporated. Besides the art, music, STEAM, we have some teacher assistants, we have drama, yearbook is going on right now. We also have our gardening class, which has turned into a gardening and cooking class, and we have a brand new skate elective. So Mr. Sampson, our new history teacher, has graciously taken that over with the kids. We had one of our students actually come and present and propose that new elective. So they are up and running. They go down to the skate park twice a week. And during the class time on the other 3 days, they are having sort of a mock business that they're putting together and building boards. So it's really fun. So we're opening up some new opportunities for our kids to sort of branch out a little bit, or a lot actually. Victoria, I had a really good time at the dance, by the way. It was really fun. They're really cute. You always want to be a fly on the wall at some of the discussions, and you can be at those dances and just watch. And it's kind of funny that they think in 2017 that they actually made up the mosh pit, and we kind of let them think that they did. It's pretty fun. I want to recognize Jake, actually. Jake, would you stand up for a moment? Jake, this last weekend, she hasn't known this. This last weekend was a presenter at the STEAM conference. Nice. And I have to share the quote because it's just too cute. She had 150 people come to her conference. She was talking about middle school STEAM and how to keep it running, what you need for that, how many donations she gets to keep it going, all the activities she does. But she had 150 people attend her sessions and, quote, and no one left. Unquote. Because you know those conferences, people go in, this really isn't what I wanted to listen to, and they walk out. But congratulations, Jake.
I think you need a t-shirt that says that.
No one walked out. We also had 3 of our teachers complete the master's program at Cal Poly in curriculum and instruction. Our first grade teacher, Sarah Brown, our third grade teacher, Sarah Johnson, and our intervention specialist, Lisa Jensen. They're not here, but we will recognize them later date. We did talk about, went to there's monthly meetings for LCAP for the county. Scott and I have been sort of tag teaming that, so I went to this last one. It was really good. We were requested to bring our resource and our special ed teachers with us. And sometimes those meetings, there's a lot of education jargon going on, and sometimes they leave everybody in the dark actually when they leave. But this one was really good. It was a real good discussion about what's going really well at your schools, what's going so-so, what do you want to work on, and everybody was able to kind of help each other. And we've really done some networking on, with the schools that have something really good going on with a school that might want to work on something. So it was actually it was a great meeting, really productive. So we talked a lot about the student progress and the change actually of the party balls that Scott had up on the wall there, and how they had to redo that. They discovered some of their mistakes, so that was good. We have another meeting, I think, in about 3 weeks, right after we get back. So that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is high school options. So we only have one document that is has been submitted prior to this. Do you have any requests for
no
public comment on high school options? So Superintendent Smith, if you would take the lead on the discussion of this item.
So all that's here this month is the requested report from Tom Griffin regarding possible tax implications of becoming a component district of San Luis Coastal. And so he worked on that report and submitted it to the district. So you can find where to pull it up here. Here it is. The report pretty much speaks for itself. I don't know what discussion wants to be had around the report, but it was requested and here it is.
I'll just say that my perception of the report is that it was a pretty comprehensive report. It addressed many of the things that we've talked about and provides, it was generated from numbers that were just recently made available to SLOCO and made available to us from SLOCO, so that it is the best current snapshot of how things stand. And I think with Tom's expertise, we have a reasonable, he's made a number of different projections based on how things go. And I think that this gives us a lot of valuable insight into the possible changes in property taxes based on a couple of different scenarios of reorganization that affects Cayucas and San Luis Coastal.
One other comment that I would have about it is that Ochoa and Moore have been done a great job in making sure that we're not overcharged. And even though he told me he spent close to 40 hours on this, I believe he's told me that he only charged us for 4.
Wow.
So, and I don't know if you've noticed, but for the amount of work that we've done with Ochoa and Moore, they have been some of the smaller bills. So I'm very appreciative. The fact of the matter is, Tom is retired and does this part-time, and he enjoys this work, and he enjoys working with our district. So he's kept his hours to a minimum.
Scott, would you mind highlighting just can you give us the Reader's Digest version of their, what they found?
Well, I think towards the bottom, there's that table that I think would be what you'd probably most like to look at. One of the things that's these assessments are very complicated because for the first part, San Luis Coastal has only sold 50 million of their 177 million authorized bonds. And so that's why there's ranges in this, because the low range is on the current 50 million, the high range is when they sell the rest of their authorized bonds. The other thing is, if you transfer territory between districts, it changes the assessed value, and so the cost of those bonds has to be reassessed over that new assessed value. And so those calculations become quite complicated and are a snapshot in time. You know, this is a moving target, and so as assessed values go up, everything changes. So while these are estimates under current numbers, it's a snapshot in time, so whatever time you actually make the moves is, so none of these numbers are in cement.
So I want to ask a question about that table. Am I correct that these are only the property taxes attributable to bond services? These don't include the 1% tax on the assessed value of the homes that also largely funds school districts.
Correct.
Because it says table of school property tax rates, but this is only it's a significant part, but it's not the big part of the school property tax.
This would not include what people refer to as our basic good revenues. This is just the tax rates to pay bonds.
Okay, any further questions? I think we will. Your call.
Can I ask a question about the options? Is it?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer it, but I'll try.
Well, I'm just curious, now that we have this resolution and now that things are burbling in the background, what role do we have as a board? Is there stuff that, just where are we in the whole process? I know Ochoa and Moore is dealing with certain things, and so just kind of what are we expecting for our money right now? What's exactly happening with, we talked, I know you're doing MOUs, the other resolution is the unification, and the other one's legislation. So what role do we have in responsibility, or is that just turned over now to Ochoa and Moore to go through?
You mean on all three options, what's happening with each individual option? Is that what you mean?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, what's happening now?
So I know that Jackie is contacting legislators and has made contact with Senator Mine's office.
Since last meeting?
The other day, Senator Monning called all three superintendents, including myself, and had a discussion. He voiced that he is concerned of unintended consequences with a legislative fix, because when you turn something loose like that, things can happen that you don't really foresee, but is very interested in what's happening down here. And all it was him calling us up saying, and the other thing he said is that he would prefer that we, as I think it's the flavor of the state, find a local solution. But that fits right into what the state legislature has been saying for several years under LCFF and local control. And that was pretty much the extent of that. The MOU discussions, I kind of updated you on that already. They're just ongoing. Timeline on that, I'm not 100% sure. I'm hoping to nail that down in the next couple days. I don't want to give you misinformation, but what it looks like right now is that we may have a possible MOU to bring forward to boards January and February. I think it's going to take 2 months to get it through 3 boards. I don't think the way that it's panning out, it can all happen in 1 month. We're waiting right now for requested changes from San Luis Coastal. And so as soon as I get those requested changes, I intend to send it to all the trustees here for your review and post it on our website. And so I don't know if that can happen, it's kind of, I don't know, the dynamics of what's happening in San Luis Coastal, so,
Post it before it got approved?
right, so everyone could review it. And that way the public can have a chance to look at it, the public can have a chance to make comments on it before, you're asked to vote on it. And you'd have a chance to pore over it and look at it and ask questions and or suggest revisions.
And the other districts are gonna do the same? Cause last time with these negotiations, it was not, until we were done, it wasn't to be out. I'm just wondering,
No, well, right, that's what we're kind of working for, but at a certain point, you gotta bring it forward so everyone has a chance to throw rocks at it. And we're almost to that point. You know, most of the details have been settled in it, and to my mind, in an acceptable manner. But bottom line is, until the boards are happy with it, nothing's done. And so, San Luis Coastal intends to have a working session with their board on it, and then bring it back for authorization in January. And I hope to do the same, and then, and that will finalize any requested changes from us and San Luis Coastal. And then it would be at that point up to Coast to approve it, possibly in February, but it's all a moving target. Something could change tomorrow. That's why I've been a little leery of throwing out timelines, because as soon as you throw them out, they change.
so Coast is gonna be the last to approve or not?
Because of the board meeting dates, it looks like it. We had hoped that it could come forward to all three boards in 1 month. But timing wise, it just didn't work, because Coast has their meeting in January very early in the month. And so requested changes that come out of San Luis Coastal wouldn't be enough time. The timeline doesn't work. And so it looks like that would be their best shot of getting something done at this point. But that could change tomorrow with another phone call I get, I don't know. But I've been working it pretty hard, and I really appreciate the collaborative efforts that both Victoria Schumacher and Eric Prater have made. And, you know, so I hope to get it to all of you as soon as I'm fairly confident that there aren't any more significant changes, because there's no sense in publishing something that's getting ready to be changed by another district immediately. And that could be as soon as the next few days, or it could be the week before our January board meeting. It's really, I'm not sure at this point. But as soon as I get something that I think isn't facing any more significant changes from the other districts, I will publish it to all of you, so that you have the most time possible to look it over and think of it as something that we're willing to sign on to. And then on, as far as K-12 unification, there is a group of parents who are interested in that, and they're kind of waiting in the wings right now to see what happens on the MOU front, I think. And I don't know what that means. It kind of depends on whether or not an MOU comes forward that's acceptable. I will say that right now, the Coast Unified has agreed to a number that I think is acceptable, which would be base amount plus 120, or I'm sorry, misspeaking, base amount plus 25%. So for a high school student currently in the current year, that would be about $11,000 a student, which isn't, I think, where we'd like it to be, but negotiations or compromise, and I think it's a reasonably generous offer. And that's, I think, all I have.
I just, once bitten, twice shy with Coast. It makes me nervous that they're last. We already had agreed to everything before and they withdrew at the last minute, so that's just my only, it's worrisome. I wish that we could be last, you know? It seems like they...
Until it's a done deal, it's not a done deal. I wholeheartedly agree.
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I had two questions. One, in this scenario of the MOU, Coast would remain the school of record and be actually have the authority over the students and the money, and they're making an agreement to pay a tuition to San Luis Coastal for those high school students at this proposed rate right now of 11,000 per student. Is that pretty well? And in this scenario, does money come to our district at all?
So the latest iteration, because originally we were talking about a K-12, the latest iteration is a 612. And it really breaks it out between 6-8 students and 9-12 students. 6-8 students, it would be IDTs between all three districts, money would flow. For 9-12 students, it would only be covering Cayucas resident students. So the only money that would flow would be from Cayucas resident students who are technically Coast Unified students traveling to San Luis Coastal. That's the only way money would flow for a 9-12 student.
So,
but for 6-8, it would go every direction depending on what the net IDT was transferred. So if we're transferring in 5 IDTs from San Luis Coastal and out only 2, we would get paid on those 3 6-8 students. The 6th grade through 8th grade students only.
But the number now is 20, so it's coming from San Luis Coastal.
It's 20.
No, yeah,
The
right.
K-8 is 20.
We were like
I see,
18 K-8. Right now in this fiscal year, I believe we are +5 with San Luis Coastal 6-8.
And it would be at that same.
Next year, my estimate, if it stays true, would be 4. We'd be +4.
So it'd be 4 times $11,000.
No, the $6-8 amount is a lower dollar amount tied to the base fund level under LCFF. So that would be around $9,000 a student.
So it'd be 27,000, somewhere around under 30,000 if I'm doing the math in my head correctly.
If it was 4 kids, it would be 36,000. Yeah.
Okay.
What it would really do though also is it puts the 3 districts in direct competition in middle school, you know, and I don't think I think there's 3 good programs. San Luis Coastal has 2 great middle schools. San Lucia is doing really well, and I think our middle school is doing really well. So I don't have a problem competing with our neighbors. I think it's healthy for all of us. But historically, we have more coming in than going out, and so I would expect that trend to continue. But reality is, under this type of an agreement, if we have more going out than coming in, it could cost us money.
Just doing the numbers in my head, it still seems like Coast should be getting like $1 million or 900,000, still not for not educating Cayucas students.
Right. Well, an MOU does not necessarily stop reorganization. It would help insulate students from being denied access to Moore Bay High. But that doesn't mean this community can't do what they want. As far as reorganization, it'll be up to the board and the community.
So I'll share my perception on Kerry's question, what's the board doing now? I think because the MOU is so imminent, my suggestion is that mostly the board is waiting, because looking at the details of MOU could significantly affect what the board wants to do. The other, Scott mentioned a group of parents who's looking at unification. One of the hopes in setting up this session in every board meeting was that the people who are advocates for the legislative approach would also make a presentation and tell us what's going on from their perspective.
You mean K-12?
So that we could collaborate. I'm sorry?
You said legislative approach. Did you mean K-12?
No, I'm not talking about the MOU. I'm talking about the people who are advocating changes in legislation
I get it.
to make a territory transfer possible.
It's not Terracate component, but they did present already.
Well, but I would hope you asked what's going on now. I would hope that there were continuing presentations so that collaboration could exist. I have no idea what's going on in that part of the discussion. So this option is always open to people, and I hope that we can take advantage of it. Anything further on the high school options discussion?
I'm just really glad that the superintendents are talking, that there's interaction between the districts. They're all going to have their concerns, because they all come from different points of view. One district is very, very large. The other district is smaller and considers themselves just as capable. And to have the superintendents collaborate and share their views, I think it's a really positive thing. It's the best thing I've heard since other views have been shared that caused a little bit of anger.
Well, Val, I appreciate your comment, because I think that if we can get an MOU in place, it's going to turn into more than that, because we're building a relationship amongst the three of us, and sometimes it takes that to have those tough conversations and being able to continue to communicate after tough conversations. You need that relationship to bridge the gap there sometimes.
I agree.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, we have retitled. It's not that the content of it is different. So we have retitled this item, "Are there consequences available to the school board when board bylaws and/or board policies are violated?" And I agreed that we would get this on the agenda for this meeting at our last meeting, and then I forgot about it. Kerry took the initiative to make sure it was on the agenda, and she has an attachment. So I'm going to let her kick off the discussion, and then we will invite others to participate.
Well, for those of you that didn't look at the agenda since we've been here, it is changed on there. I do want to say, I never mentioned, okay, it's not changed on there, but if you look at agenda online, I never said anything about discipline, and when we approved the agenda, nobody was here. But to me, disciplining a board member is icky, and it's not, I don't think, in our role, and so I didn't like that title on the agenda. That wasn't what I asked for. That wasn't my intent. So the summary still requests that the options for discipline available. I never said discipline available. I just want to know, my concern is when things are not followed correctly, do we have consequences? I don't have an answer to that question. So as far as kicking off the discussion, there was an ethics laws document that I found, and I don't have the answers, but it seems like it's come up before that policies haven't been followed, so then what do we do? It's kind of like a so what, now what? So I just want to have a discussion because we keep hearing, you know, things from either public comment or within ourselves that's not following. So I just want to know what we're going to do about it besides just, okay, there's another one.
Okay. Scott, I believe that you have talked with our attorney about this. Would you summarize that discussion for us?
About which part?
About which part? What are the powers of the board regarding
okay.
board members who may not be aligned with board bylaws, board members' actions that may not be aligned with bylaws or policies?
So when, as elected officials, you guys have a lot of authority, and I think the law is set up to always default to your authority and your ability to not only act as an elected official, but also act as an individual. So when you are violating your own board policies, which you vote on them and you can change them, but when an individual member violates board policies and or does anything that the rest of the board doesn't really like, as far as any type of public actions that occur, the really only tool that the board has itself is to vote for censure of an individual board member. That is basically a symbolic act that just states publicly, we don't agree with whatever they did on a certain occasion or whatever they said on a certain occasion. And so it's a way for the board to say someone's not speaking for us. Other than that, there's not a lot the board can do when a board member violates board policies and procedures. You're elected officials, and ultimately you guys can vote to change your board policies and procedures together, obviously using a majority vote. Outside of that, I think this document that Trustee Friend had attached does a pretty good job going through the different liabilities that board members face through their own actions. But that wouldn't be a board itself taking action. Was that the type of synopsis you were interested in?
Yeah, I think, I think it's really important to have this discussion because we have two board members who haven't been present when we've had this discussion in the past. The public is always changing and there are different people here. So I think it's important to have the discussion. I just want to read a couple of things from Board Bylaw 9323, Board Bylaws Meeting Conduct, and this will give you some flavor of how, in some cases, the law, in other cases, the generally accepted bylaws for school boards. So I'm in section 6, if anybody wants to look it up, Board Bylaw 9323. And the statement is, the board shall not prohibit public criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, acts, or omissions. And that's from Government Code 549 54.3. So that we can't change that. So when somebody has a complaint about us, about a staff person, about a teacher, about the buildings, we can't say, no, stop.
Teachers we
don't want to
can.
hear that.
Teachers we can.
You absolutely can't.
I believe that's their protected right with CTA. that it has to be in closed session then.
Uh,
Teachers are protected, I'm pretty sure teachers, you can't allow somebody from the public to come and bash a teacher.
I researched that getting ready for this meeting. I think that used to be in our bylaws, but we brought our bylaws into conformance with the CSBA bylaws, and I can't find it there anymore. The item 7 in the same bylaw, the board president shall not permit any disturbance or willful interruption of board meetings, persistent disruption by an individual or group, or any conduct or statements that threaten the safeties of any persons at the meeting shall be grounds for the president to terminate the privilege of addressing the board. And that applies to one meeting. You can stop someone. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. So the superintendent or designee shall contact local law enforcement as necessary. But that's it. There are no other hidden powers. We can't take away somebody's committee appointment. We don't have any slush fund money that we could send to a board member's district, because we don't have districts. A lot of the things that you think about a legislative body being able to do to encourage people to stand in line, we can't do. I guess the other thing that we could do, and I avoid this if I'm aware of somebody who has violated a board policy or a board bylaw, we could do public shaming. We could bring it up in the meeting and say, oh, you did this, and that's bad. I don't think that's an effective way to run a meeting or to get a board to work together better. So I resist doing this. Anything else? Okay. If you all are comfortable, this item 9 is the consent agenda. It should go pretty quickly from here on out. Oh no, we also have the first interim report. I would like to declare a 5-minute break if nobody objects. So by that clock, we'll resume at 5 minutes left. Thank you.